Howdy. I'm Gray Pilgrim. First of all, please excuse me, because right now my sinuses are going absolutely bonkers. I don't know what the heck happened, but the world is just, I mean, it must be going pollen crazy, because I'm just sniffling and my nose is running right and left. Anyway, I got one gun to show and some books. I'm going to start with the books. First of all, last night, that's Wednesday night, I was listening to a podcast on 11 Bang Bang. They do this thing called the Reloaded Show, in which they interview people and discuss various aspects. And one thing that Garrett Woods was talking about on there was that he's going to do a week-long thing of promoting various other smaller YouTubers who are in this gun tube space. And some of them I'd like to mention are a fellow named Oregon Loner, who's a neighbor of mine and has been over a few times. And, let's see, Duke Fraser Productions, and the Wild Snapper. Wild Snapper, by the way, was on the podcast last night. And I really admire his knowledge of classic Colt revolvers. He is a absolute, expert on them. And on the Single Action Army in particular, he has a good collection of originals. I just have facsimiles. Sorry. Anyway, speaking of which, this is my Austin & Halleck absolute gorgeous flintlock. Let me show it to you. This thing is, as you can tell, absolutely gorgeous. And it's recently become one of my favorite pastimes. It's one of my favorite guns. It's a flintlock. It's got an octagonal barrel. It's heavy as can be, but with a very sleek, light stock on it. It's made out of this really nice curly maple that is just gorgeous. I walked into my favorite gun shop, and the guy who runs it, he has a little rack behind the cash register where he puts the stuff that's either going out or just came in. And this had just come in, and he was busy talking to somebody else, and I yelled out at him, "Hey, what about this flintlock? Can I look at it?" And his kid came over and I said, "Look, give me that." So I was looking at it and I said, "How much?" And he gave me a price, and I said, "Sold." I mean, I didn't argue. It was a reasonable price, and it's just beautiful. It shoots well. It has this buckhorn sight that is just absolutely wonderful for getting that front post in line. The front post has, I think that's German silver on the front post. By the way, on a flintlock, this leather cover, this is your safety. It covers your pan cover / steel / frizzen, and keeps it away from the flint. So that even if you have this cocked and ready to go, and you pull the trigger, if this is in place, nothing happens, because the flint just goes thud on the leather. And I would highly recommend it if you're a flintlock user, get these things. I got this one off of Etsy, but you can find find your local leather worker and ask him to make you something. They're not that hard to make. They're just they're just a little loop of leather that's been tied together. It's got a hole in it for putting a leather thong on to hang it on the trigger guard, which is the usual way of doing it, which I've done with others, but I haven't gotten around to doing this one yet. But it's a beautiful, beautiful gun, and I love it so. Just thought I would show it off, because it's just gorgeous. Let me do it this way, and then you can see the lock plate. Well, anyway, the books I wanted to talk about, two things. First of all, now Garrett, you may like this. It's called the 1862 Army Officer's Pocket Companion. This little gem here was put out in 1862 and is more of a compendium of other works on the subject. And it covers everything from cavalry to infantry, how to set up a camp, how to run an entrenchment system, how to set up the latrines when you're in camp, proper conduct between officers and enlisted, everything from how to march to how to hold a general court. It's in here. And it's just a fascinating look at Army life at the beginning of the Civil War. And it's a good read, I think. But anyway, I don't know, who published this? I forget. Well, this is my reading glasses. I've got 2 sets of glasses. These are for reading books and another one for reading computers. So, and I color code them. This is Stackpole Books. The other one, back at the end of the 19th century, there was this fellow who, as a hobby, he liked to sketch things. And he really liked ships, like boats, like the early sailing ships and the new paddle wheelers and others like that. And he was pretty good at sketching them. And he had amassed a rather large collection of various ships that he'd taken sketches of. And he had like an encyclopedic memory. And his name, by the way, was Jane. I forget his first name, but his last name was Jane. And he put out a book eventually in, I think, 1898 called Jane's All the World's Ships. And it was just this compendium of every ship that he's ever sketched and information about them. You know, what's the tonnage? What's the crew complement? If it's a warship, how many guns does it carry? Is it square-rigged or a fast schooner, or what is it? He became vastly popular, especially with Lloyd's of London, because Lloyd's was keeping a track of every ship out there that they insured. And they insured every ship afloat in the old British Empire. So they had these massive books on all of these ships. I think to this day, the Lloyd's book is considered one of the masterworks for maritime historians. Anyway, Jane's put out his All the World's Ships, then later All the World's Planes, All the World's Tanks. It became a very a comprehensive collection of such. This is all, by the way, open record, no super secret stuff. And Jane's information group is still going today. They've gone through like 4 different owners, but the company is still going. And one book that they used to put out, but don't anymore, they put out yearbooks that are compendium additions to it. But this is a 1976 copy of Jane's and its infantry weapons. They also have all the world's aircraft, fighting ships, freight containers, infantry weapons, major companies of Europe, ocean technology, surface summaries, weapon systems, and world railway. This has now 76. This is the height of the Cold War, and it has like compendiums of all the different assault rifles, pistols, rifle grenades, machine guns, you name it, it's in here. If it's crew served or less, I mean, they've got it. Mortars, all that stuff. But if you are looking for a book on everything there is to do with guns, pick up a copy of this. Don't buy the new ones unless you're absolutely rich. Back around, what would that be? Heck, almost 30 years ago, I subscribed to their weekly magazine that was called Jane's Defense Weekly. Now, Jane's Defense, what it was a compendium of things like what's Raytheon up to, or whatever companies. They were looking at various machines or fighting machines that were being built and who was buying them. And they'd go to all the different arms fairs and all the trade shows around, and they'd have a Jane's booth there. But they would be taking photos and finding out all the brochures on all of the different weapons manufacturers. So here's the latest General Dynamics thing, or this from Boeing, or that from Lockheed. And And at the time, they came up with, well, they had everything you would want to know about weapons. And I was subscribing to this back around 1990, 1991. And I saw, frankly, I saw the writing on the wall because I saw that the Soviet Union was about to collapse. Not from anything that was showing up in the regular press, but something that was showing up in Jane's Defense Weekly. Looking at tallies of purchases and things like that. At the time, the USSR was not purchasing anything. They were broke, flat broke. But they had a lot of internal strife, and they were basically running out of guns to fight it. Remember, they had been fighting in Afghanistan for years, and it was bleeding them dry. Anyway, I pretty well decided when I saw that, but at the time, by the way, I was living in Albuquerque. I was newly married, had a baby, and I was looking around and I thought, well, Albuquerque, New Mexico sits next to Kirtland Air Force Base, is just south of Los Alamos Laboratories, and just north of White Sands Missile Range. It sits where I-25 and I-40 cross, and X marks the spot. I looked at my wife, I looked at my kid, I looked at a very good job I had, and I said, to heck with it. And having read another book by a man named Dr., I think his name is Bruce Clayton, Life After Doomsday, which if you can ever find a copy, I think there's one over on Archival Work. Do find it and do read it. It's an excellent book. But one thing that he listed was in the event of what he called a spasm war, and when the USSR was still there, it was basically they launch everything and we launch everything, and bang, 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 and the world comes to an end. Well, if that happened, most of North America would be uninhabitable just because of the drift of fallout. Only two spots in North America would be relatively safe. One were certain mountain valleys in the Ozarks in Arkansas, and the other was the Willamette River Valley in Oregon. Well, I happen to have relatives in the Willamette River Valley. So I quit my job, packed everything up in a U-Haul, and loaded wife, kid, a rabbit, 2 cats, I think, and all of our stuff, and drove to Oregon, where I've lived ever since. I don't regret it, but the whole idea was to get the heck out of Dodge before there was no more Dodge, or Albuquerque. I'm now glad because I left the city. Anyway, that's just my tale. And I brought with me, among other things, a lot of my library. I did a video some time ago where I showed off my main library out in the rest of this building. And it's about 3,500 volumes. I know that internet takes the place of books these days, but books, I like books. I can sit down and quietly read a book, and I can absorb things from the book, whereas internet is all YouTube shorts, flash, 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 and it's over. Wait a minute, I'm taking notes. You know, it's hard to do that with a YouTube short. Anyway, excuse me. What was I going to talk about? Oh, the other ones, let's see, I mentioned Wild Snapper, Oregon Loner, and Duke Fraser. There's some others. There's Firearms Addict. Excellent, excellent channel. He's got this range that is lust-worthy, private range. And then there's several others like that. These are not the high-end GunTube channels, the ones that have millions of subscribers and have hundreds of thousands of views all the time. Heck, I at the moment have 861 subscribers. I really like to get up to 1,000, but so like, share, subscribe. Yeah, right. If you didn't like it, do subscribe and hit the like and stuff. It helps with the algorithm. God, I hate that. By the way, Garrett is right about one thing. YouTube never, ever sponsors this kind of stuff. They never promote it in their stuff. So people who make gun videos, they don't really do that well in terms of views, because it's all people who find it on their own, not people who YouTube points to it. And some of the early ones, Garrett's, 11 Bang Bang, is doing fairly well. Some of the others I've mentioned, AR American's another one. We're definitely lesser tiered on the YouTube standards. So anyway, I'm rambling now. By the way, YouTube's management sucks. And if you really like this, take a look over on BitChute or Rumble, because I'm there too. And I'm also on Odyssey. But BitChute and Rumble, well, they do a good job of taking the stuff I put onto YouTube and just putting it up over there so I don't have to deal with it. And that's nice. And one thing I have noticed is I put a video up on YouTube, it gets 2, 3, 4 videos. The minute it drops on BitChute, 30 videos. Within a half an hour, 44. Within a little while more, 50. You know, 60. It's just amazing because it's just, I don't know if BitChute or, I mean, Rumble's not promoting it, I know, but BitChute must. Or maybe there's just a much more lively group of gun nuts over on BitChute. I don't know. But, you know, I've got all these supposed subs on YouTube, which I wonder if half of them are bots anyway. And, but I've got, I don't know, what, 140 or so on BitChute right now. No, so I'm not a big one there either. I'm not big anywhere. I'm just an old hillbilly who happens to like guns a lot and likes to try and learn all he can about, you know, small arms and how to use them and the history of things like the Civil War. And with Flintlock, well, that sort of fits. You do realize at the beginning of the Civil War, most of the guys down in the South, this is what they were shooting. They weren't shooting Springfields or big cap and ball, gorgeous looking rifled muskets. No, they were shooting old cap and ball or flintlock and ball rifles. And they still made a good show of themselves with those. So, I mean, there's a good picture of some good old boy who looked like he'd been around since the Revolution. And he's sitting there with a flintlock. And, you know, he's just a Southern gentleman trying to protect his home. You know. And by the way, that was what it was really all about. States' rights and staying home. To hell with the modern political right-think thing. I'm speaking the reality of it, and I know a fair bit of history on the subject. You know, not to mention, my sympathies were with the South, and not about slavery. It was about states' rights, and it's about, well, what they believed in, which was honoring your local environment, your town, your family, your household, your local group of people. You might, well, I'm from Virginia or I'm from Tennessee. Well, they didn't think of themselves as Americans. They thought of themselves as the valley they lived in, or the county that they lived in. You know, and what they did, like, you know, Amish milk farmers, or you know, wood choppers in Tennessee, or rural farmers in Alabama. And I don't mean the big plantations, because the plantation owners then were like the uber rich today. They were less than 1%. The rest of it was just poor sodbusters trying to make a living out of what land they had. And then comes Sherman and completely destroys what they had. Oh well. Okay, now I'm really ranting. Anyway, I just wanted to show off these 2 books and this gun. And now you've seen it. Happy trails.